In a small town nestled between towering mountains lived a young woman named Priya. She had big dreams, bigger than the town, bigger than anyone around her could imagine. But there was one thing that set Priya apart from others. She kept her dreams to herself. Priya had learned early in life that not all dreams need to be shared. She saw how others spoke of their goals, only to have them questioned, doubted, or ignored. She saw how easy it was for the world to crush the spark of a dream with words like, "That's impossible," or "You'll never make it." So, Priya decided to do something different. She kept her dreams close to her heart, hidden from the world. She didn't need the validation of others to move forward. Instead of speaking about her future, she let her actions tell the story. Every day she worked quietly with determination, focusing on the small steps that would take her closer to where she wanted to be. No one knew her plan, no one knew what she was working on. She didn't share her goals with friends, family, or even the people who saw her every day. Instead, she simply showed up, did the work, and kept her focus. People around her began to notice. At first, they were confused. Why isn't Priya talking about her future? They wondered. What is she up to? But they didn't ask. They just saw her steadily making progress. Priya didn't need to explain herself. She didn't need anyone to understand her journey. She knew that true power doesn't come from talking about your dreams. It comes from quietly working toward them, even when no one is watching. As the months passed, Priya's work began to speak for itself. The quiet efforts she put in every day began to show results, slowly at first, but then steadily growing into something tangible, something real. And as she walked through the town, people started to notice the change. But Priya remained silent. She didn't boast. She didn't share her accomplishments. She just kept moving forward, letting her actions speak louder than words ever could. Months passed and Priya's silent work began to bear fruit. While others continued to talk about their dreams, she continued to do. She spent hours reading, learning, practicing, and refining her craft. Every day she carved out time for her vision, regardless of how small the progress seemed. Her friends still didn't know what she was doing. They'd ask her about her plans, but she'd always respond with a simple smile and say, "I'm working on it." But the truth was, Priya wasn't just working. She was building something that could not be seen yet, something that had not been spoken into existence. She was creating a foundation, brick by brick, with no one watching. One day, while walking through town, Priya passed a small cafe. As she looked through the window, she saw a group of people talking loudly about their dreams. They were excited, their voices full of energy and ambition, but Priya couldn't help but notice the underlying doubt in their words, the way they shrugged off the challenges that lay ahead. Priya's focus shifted back to her own quiet path. She didn't need to share her goals anymore. She didn't need anyone's approval. She had learned that the loudest voice is often the one that distracts you from doing the work. So she kept moving forward, still silent, still determined. And slowly, the pieces of her dream began to come together. Her small business, built quietly, without fanfare, began to grow. She had built something real, something that could be felt, not just talked about. Her ideas had turned into tangible results, and people began to notice. They began to ask questions. They began to seek her advice, but Priya remained quiet. She didn't share the story of how she got there, nor did she boast about her accomplishments. She simply kept working, creating, and building her dream with every silent step. As Priya's work grew, so did her confidence. But it wasn't the kind of confidence that demanded attention or praise. It was a quiet knowing, a belief in herself that didn't need validation from anyone else. People started to approach her, asking how she had done it, how she had built something so impactful without saying a word. But Priya, as always, smiled softly and answered, "I've been working." Her business had become successful in its own right. It wasn't huge, but it was sustainable. It was built on small, consistent steps, with no distractions, no promises, no declarations. It was hers, and that was enough. One day, her friend, who had always been the one to talk about big dreams but never take action, approached her with wide eyes. "I don't get it," he said. "How did you do it? How did you keep it all going without telling anyone, without needing anyone to cheer you on?" Priya looked at him, knowing this was a pivotal moment. "I didn't need people to believe in me. I just needed to believe in the work." Her friend stood there, silent for a moment, as if the weight of her words seethed. Months later, Priya stood at the helm of a thriving business. The small, quiet project she had started was now a company that provided value to people, something real, something lasting. But still, the core of her success was never in the loud announcements or the flashy presentations. It had always been in the quiet consistency of her work. One day, a young entrepreneur visited her, someone who had heard of her success and wanted advice. Priya welcomed him into her office, a small, simple room that reflected her values, efficient, purposeful, and peaceful. "I don't understand," he said. "You've built all of this without telling anyone, without seeking attention. How do you stay focused when everyone around you is chasing fame and recognition?" Priya smiled. She had been asked that same question countless times, but this time the answer felt more crystal clear than ever before. "Because I'm not in this for the recognition. I'm in this for the work, for what I can create, and the world doesn't need to know what I'm doing until it's done." She paused, letting the words settle between them. People think success is about being seen, about being the loudest in the room. But I've learned that the quieter you are, the more space you create for your work to speak for itself. You don't need to announce your dreams, you just need to live them. The young entrepreneur nodded slowly, understanding the depth of her words. Over the next few weeks, Priya's business continued to expand, but she remained grounded. She didn't boast about her progress, didn't seek validation from others. Instead, she focused on the next step, the next goal, the next opportunity to grow. The more she worked, the more she realized that the real power wasn't in making noise. It was in creating something real that stood on its own. And slowly, the people around her began to understand. Success wasn't about the stories you tell, it was about the one you live. Years went by, and Priya's success quietly flourished. Her company had grown into an established presence in the community, her influence spreading beyond the small town. But she had never sought fame. She had never tried to outshine others or boast about her achievements. The work, her work, was her greatest accomplishment. One evening at a local gathering, someone stood up and asked her, "Priya, how did you manage to grow your business into what it is now without drawing attention to it? Most people talk about their dreams all the time, but you've been doing it all in silence. What's the secret?" The room fell silent as everyone turned to her. Priya didn't rush to answer. She took a moment, letting the question settle within her, feeling the weight of the journey. She stood up slowly and smiled. "The secret," she began, "is that success is not about how loud you speak or how many people know about your plans. It's about the quiet, relentless pursuit of your goals. It's about doing the work when no one is watching, staying consistent when others are distracted, and knowing that the results will speak for themselves." The room was still, each person digesting the truth in her words. "You see," she continued, "most people talk about success, but true success isn't about telling everyone what you're going to do. It's about showing them what you've already done. It's about the quiet strength of action, the power of silence that allows your work to be your voice." She paused, letting her words land. "Don't wait for permission to dream. Don't ask for approval. Let your actions, the quiet work you do every day, be the message to the world." Priya sat down, the crowd now understanding what she had been teaching them all along. The loudest victories are often the most silent. The true power lies in consistency, in action, and in the peace of knowing you don't have to shout about your success to make it real. And as she looked around the room, she realized her greatest achievement wasn't the business, the recognition, or the accolades. It was the quiet, steady path she had walked, letting her work speak volumes. As the years went on, Priya became a quiet legend in her own right, not because of the loud triumphs or the headlines, but because of the foundation she had quietly built, brick by brick. She had learned that success wasn't about chasing applause, it was about creating something meaningful, something that stood strong on its own. Her business continued to grow, but the focus had shifted. It was no longer just about profits or expanding her influence, it was about giving back, about sharing the lessons she had learned along the way. One day, as she sat by the window of her office, she reflected on how far she had come. She remembered the days when she felt overwhelmed, when she doubted herself, when the world seemed too loud. She remembered how easy it was to get caught up in the noise, the pressure to perform, to prove herself, to talk about her plans. But now Priya understood.